Xiaoxiu was a professional rental boyfriend. His clients ranged from middle-aged uncles to rich older women, but more often than not, he chose the uncle-type clients, the ones with the most money and the fewest demands. Sure, dealing with those middle-aged men would leave him feeling sick for a long time afterward. But the moment he thought about the generous pay, all that discomfort suddenly felt trivial. Even his coworkers didn't know what to say about him anymore. With a face like his, he could freely choose good-looking clients, yet he insisted on suffering through appointments with those greasy uncles. But in Xiaoxiu's eyes, a rich, ugly man was far better than a handsome beggar. If you were ugly and poor, then you deserved nothing but a lonely life. His gaze drifted toward Xiaohei nearby, and he casually told his coworker that guy looked like the kind who'd been single since birth. All in all, rather than living like that, it was better to cling to wealthy uncle clients. The two of them joked back and forth as they walked into the barbecue restaurant, completely unaware that someone behind them had been watching the whole time. Xiaoxiu barely ate a few bites of meat. He only drank half a bottle of alcohol before stopping, saying he had a date tomorrow and couldn't risk getting bloated, otherwise that older sister would be unhappy. His co-worker looked at him speechless and said they were almost 30 already, there was no need to live so meticulously. Xiaoxiu shot back bluntly, asking if his co-worker's income hadn't been dropping sharply lately, and suggested he'd better manage his clients more carefully. The co-worker clenched his fists in anger. Just then, the male lead appeared and asked politely whether they needed to change the grill. Xiaoxiu didn't even lift his head, replying that they were almost done and would be leaving soon. At that moment, his phone rang. "I'll step out to take this," he said cheerfully. "Hey, sister, I miss you too. I really want to see you soon." His coworker cursed under his breath. What an irritating guy. Seeing that Xiaohei still hadn't left, he asked if there was something else. Xiaohei looked shy. He scratched his head and hesitantly asked whether they could give him the contact information of Xiaoxiu's companion. The coworker raised an eyebrow and looked him over carefully. Dirty clothes, poor and shabby from head to toe. A mischievous thought suddenly crossed his mind. He pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it over, telling Xiaohei to just contact the number on it. Sure enough, the very next day, the moment Xiaoxiu stepped outside, his agent called him, saying a big client had come in, specifically asking for him by name. Not only that, the client had paid the full amount up front. Xiaoxiu was overjoyed, already imagining that he'd hooked a massive catch. Then the agent sent over the client's photo. The moment Xiaoxiu saw it, his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. After seeing so many wrinkled old men, a fresh young face was far more pleasing to the eye. But once he met the client in person, his hopes completely collapsed. Was this guy even human? This was outright fraud. He immediately called his agent, demanding to know whether the wrong photo had been sent. To his surprise, the agent calmly replied that he had double-checked everything before sending it. And besides, how could a photo ever look exactly like the real person? He told Xiaoxiu to stop overthinking it and get on with the job. Xiaohei stood silently behind him, stiff and awkward. After gathering his courage, he stammered and asked whether something was wrong. Xiaoxiu glanced at him, then put on a gentle smile and said, "No, he just needed to confirm something." Since Xiaohei had booked the full package rental boyfriend service, Xiaoxiu asked warmly, "So, where would you like to go now, dear client?" He comforted himself inwardly. So what if the photo was misleading? It was hard to tell, but the guy still seemed pretty wealthy. As long as the money was good, nothing else mattered. With enough money, he could work as long as the client wanted. Xiaohei immediately panicked and apologized, trembling. "I'm sorry, I'm just really nervous." The next moment, he led Xiaoxiu into a dessert shop. As soon as they sat down, Xiaohei buried himself in sweets, eating and drinking nonstop. A preference that was honestly hard to understand. But sitting in silence like this wasn't going to work. Xiaoxiu suddenly called out to him, startling Xiaohei badly. "Are you really just going to sit here drinking in front of me the whole time? Can't we talk?" Xiaohei held his ice cream and hesitated for a long while before mumbling that he didn't know how to address him. Patiently, Xiaoxiu told him it didn't matter. He was 2 years older anyway, so if Xiaohei didn't mind, He could just call him gay. Xiaohei immediately brightened. Then, I'll call you Jay. After another 5 minutes of awkward silence, Xiaohei suddenly blurted out, Gay, you can be casual too. Just call me Guitai. Xiaoshu's head started to ache from the painfully awkward conversation. He asked whether this was Xiaohei's first date. Xiaohei nodded obediently, just as he'd expected. Then Xiaoshu asked if he'd already eaten before coming. Another obedient nod. No matter what Xiaoshu asked, the answer was always, ah, or yes. There was absolutely no way to keep a conversation going like this. So he tried again, asking whether Xiaohei had any hobbies. This time, Xiaohei finally spoke more than one sentence. He said he really did have one hobby he loved. Xiaoshu sighed in relief internally. Finally, something they could actually talk about. Xiaohei pulled out his phone and showed him a photo. It was a cactus. Xiaoshu quickly praised him. You grow plants? That's great. It's really beautiful. That single compliment finally opened Xiaohei's floodgates. He launched into a long, detailed explanation about the origins and characteristics of the plant, talking non-stop. They ended up chatting like this for nearly an hour. Xiaoshu finally couldn't take it anymore. He asked Xiaohei to wait a moment, then suddenly stood up. These plants really are beautiful, he said sincerely. But right now, I'd like to get to know you a little better. Xiaohei first took Xiaoshu to a dessert shop. Xiaoshu tried his best to keep the conversation going, asking whether this wasn't his first date and whether there was anything he wanted to do. The moment Xiaohei heard that, his eyes lit up. Stammering nervously, he asked if Xiaoshu really would agree to anything he asked. Xiaoshu smiled and replied that of course he would. There was a time limit, but for now, he belonged to Xiaohei alone. Hearing this, Xiaohei finally relaxed. He quickly pulled out a list he'd prepared, his dating checklist. The first and second items had already been completed. As for the third, wearing matching couple rings, he was fully prepared. Xiaoshu was still processing all this when, in the very next moment, Xiaohei took out a sparkling diamond ring. Seeing Xiaohei's shy expression, Xiaoshu became absolutely certain. This guy was a big catch. That's right. On their very first meeting, he'd already prepared a ring. Even the rich older woman who hired him regularly had never gone this far. Next, they headed to the arcade. But Xiaoshu couldn't help feeling puzzled. Wasn't this cafe supposed to be a popular dating spot? Why was there no one else around? Xiaohei stammered, as he explained that at this time of day, he had rented out the entire cafe. He just wanted to enjoy a dating space that belonged only to the two of them. For a moment, Xiaoshu didn't know what to say. Renting out a cafe and buying a ring on a first date? Was this not just rich but outrageously so? Or was the guy a complete fool? Though those thoughts ran through his mind, Xiaoshu still smiled and said that being alone together was actually quite nice. Then he casually asked whether the next stop, the arcade, had also been rented out. Xiaohei stammered again, saying that since he didn't know whether GE wanted to go, he hadn't rented it. Hearing that, Xiaoshu felt an overwhelming sense of relief. As the date went on, everything proceeded smoothly. Xiaoshu even won a plush dog at a claw machine and gave it to Xiaohei, who was so touched that he solemnly declared he would treasure it as a family heirloom. After that, they played shooting games, where the loser had to flick the other's forehead. For dinner, Xiaohei had already chosen the restaurant in advance. After eating and drinking their fill, Xiaoshu thought to himself that this had been the most relaxing workday he'd had in a long time. Still, something had been bothering him since earlier. So he asked Xiaohei why he'd been acting strange ever since leaving the cafe. Isn't your backpack uncomfortable? Xiaohei twisted about awkwardly for a long time, stammering and unable to explain. Just then, rain suddenly began to fall from the sky. The two of them hurried into a nearby hotel to take shelter. Only when Xiaohei finally put his backpack down, and with his clothes already soaked through, did Xiaoshu's eyes suddenly widen as he stared at a certain spot. No wonder that guy had been acting so strangely. So that was what the backpack was for. So startled that Xiaoshu immediately fled to the bathroom to take a shower. After all, this was the guy's first time renting a boyfriend, and he'd applied for the full-service package right from the start. He must have had plans from the very beginning. Besides, Xiaoxiu considered himself a mature adult. He told himself to just laugh it off. Still, when it came time to open the bathroom door, he couldn't help feeling uneasy. That guy was tall and broad. Would he really be safe? When he finally stepped out, he found Xiaohei curled up quietly in the corner. Only when Xiaoxiu told him it was his turn to shower did Xiaohei spring to his feet and trot eagerly into the bathroom. Seeing him like that, Xiaoxiu was momentarily speechless. He honestly didn't know whether this guy was capable or not. But as the saying goes, you can't judge a person by appearances, just like you can't measure the sea with a bucket. When Xiaohei came out of the bathroom, Xiaoxiu's jaw nearly dropped. Once he took off his glasses, it was as if he'd become a completely different person. Still, at that moment, Xiaoxiu didn't yet understand what exactly awaited him next. 2 whole chapters omitted here. Please use your imagination. When Xiaoxiu woke up again, it was already 10 a.m. The moment he realized the time, he jolted awake. Their schedule had clearly ended at 10 p.m. last night, and now the time had completely slipped away. At that moment, Xiaohei was kneeling on the floor, his face full of worry, apologizing repeatedly and saying it was all his fault for causing Xiaoxiu to faint the night before. But he quickly added that he'd immediately contacted the agent. Only then did Xiaoxiu finally let out a long breath of relief. Xiaohei continued apologizing solemnly, over and over again. He said that after Xiaoxiu passed out, he'd applied medicine and taken care of everything afterward. And on top of that, he'd even gone out early to buy him a warm breakfast. As he spoke, he personally scooped up food and fed Xiaoxiu, blowing on it carefully so it wouldn't be too hot. That attentive. It was practically like he was taking care of a little baby. Xiaoxiu felt warmth spreading through his chest, and for a moment, he didn't know what to say. Looking at him now, it seemed his agent had been right after all. Once the glasses were off, that face was actually quite decent. And his body, surprisingly good. Most importantly, he spent money generously. Really, the perfect sucker.